Sorry guys, I forgot my gavel. I call this meeting of the MSAD 49 Board of School Directors to order. Roll call, Wooten here, Boyden.
Here.
Brown-Woods.
Here.
Calgary. Davis-Folsom.
Here.
Dumont.
Here.
Hashi.
Here.
Hussey.
Here.
Kinley.
Here.
Knowles.
Here.
Lambert.
Here.
Mr. White is unable to make it this evening. Williams.
Here.
Thank you. The Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of minutes. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes of the February 4th, 2021 board meeting?
Second.
All right, who says, oh, thank you, Katrina. And I've got Heather.
Yep.
It's been moved by Katrina, seconded by Heather, to accept the minutes of the February 4th, 2021 board meeting. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? 12? 0, 0. Citizens input? All right. Old business, school construction project update.
Each of you should have a copy. I had printed CHA's presentation from the community forums, and just as a bit of a refresher, at the last building committee on February 8th, the group in conjunction with CHA and following up from a conversation that we had with Scott Brown and his team, we recommend that we move forward with some more forum events, and that each school community would host one for us. So on the cover sheet, you have the dates, the 24th and 25th, and the 1st and the 2nd of this week. And they were better attended than the first two that we had in January. We also had a virtual forum, also on March 2nd, just prior to the in-person one. I had sent home a letter to all the households, the families in the district associated with our information system where I could pull addresses inviting families to attend. I had posted that up on the website under New School. And I also had created a postcard, and I'm sure each of you received that in the bulk mailing when we send out copies of the budget book to all the residents in our communities. And we sent all this information to each of the respective town offices and had printed out the flyers that we had generated. So we did our best, and we also did a robocall. Did our best to make community aware that we were hosting these events, and then we invited them. We wanted their input. CHA had updated with some more detail this presentation as compared to the ones that were presented in January, based on and reflective of the feedback that they received from those forums, from the survey that we sent out and posted up on the website. And we also have an email dedicated to questions about school construction, though I haven't received many questions through that forum. But each site had some interesting views, some good conversation. There were a couple points in the presentation where the architect stopped and solicited questions. The questions ranged from, where would a school be built to, does this mean closure of 3 schools, to what are the options, how would this affect busing, all sorts of questions. And we do know that it is a process that's going to be, we're a year and 3 months from the referendum where the public is going to approve or not our concept design. So we have lots of time to continue with the community engagement. This is the initial phase of it. And I believe that we've not exhausted this at all, but I think the word is out there. We have people's attention, and we have people interested in the process and contributing. And we have people, who need more information and some answers. And our next building committee meeting is going to be on Monday. And at that time, as the board has directed us, we're going to review all the information we have and formulate a recommendation to the board about moving forward. And what I clarified, there was a question at one of the forums, and you can see all these and view them. And if you have time, I would encourage you to do so, because they all have their different flavor, if you will, and concerns specific to a community. But what is the board deciding on March 18th? And what the board is going to give the committee direction on is what are the possibilities, what are the scenarios that the state could possibly fund for us. And the state has been very supportive. I mean, Scott and his team have repeatedly articulated it should reflect our needs. They want to solve the problems that we have with aging facilities, but it also must reflect the wishes of our community, and we certainly need the support of our communities for the project to be successful. So what the building committee will do based on your charge will be to develop some scenarios with the firm and present those back to the board. Are there questions? Or, and thank you to the board members who participated and attended. And I would invite any of you to offer up your experience and observation from the sessions that you attended.
All right, thank you, Roberta. Moving on, new business, March 19th in-service recommendation.
My recommendation is that this is an in-service date that's already part of our calendar, and I would just recommend in conversation with our Teachers Association that we allow the teachers that time for their individual planning in their spaces and taking care of what they need to.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. So it has been motioned by Katrina and seconded by Ray to approve the recommendation for the March 19th in-service day. Any discussion? I do have one question, Roberta. Would this be including the ed techs?
No, it would not. With the exception of the Ed Tech 3s, I think the 1s and 2s have satisfied that part of the agreement.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor? All those opposed? 1, 0. Motion carries. Resignations, there are none. Appointments, there are none noted. Committee reports. Finance and Facilities met this evening to talk some more about where we are at in the budget process.
as a reminder, when we met last month, what we talked about was the impact of the lower student count on the funding that we'll receive from the Department of Education, pending that budget's passage, and how we can make recommendations on our school budget to help mitigate some of that loss, because we do anticipate a significant reduction in state funding for next year. So what the Finance Committee had talked about at the last meeting was trying to get to a flat budget for FY22. So having the next school year budget come in as close as possible to what the current year budget was. So we were a little over 3% when we started looking at that at the last meeting, which I said last time, and I'll say again, in a normal year, that would have felt like a great place to start with a 3% increase. And what we suggested the administration explore for some opportunities were what was available for federal resources that we could utilize to mitigate some of our operating budget. And I'll say again that, you know, as a finance person, I'm very cautious about shifting ongoing expenses into what really is one-time funding with these federal resources. But given the economic conditions around us related to the pandemic, it seems like in this year, we may want to explore some of that as a way to mitigate some of the increase. So what we have seen tonight from the administration is some shifting from the budget that we saw in February, with shifting of items out of the operating budget into federal resources, in particular some technology, a reading recovery teacher that can be funded with federal funding, some reductions identified by the principals, which at that point really fall into supplies and that sort of line item. Also, there is a potential to shift about $238,000 worth of cost to other federal grants, some reduction in system administration, and really what that leaves us with for an increase as of right now. The net increase in the budget that we looked at tonight is basically the projected cost of increase in the health insurance program. So what we have asked at tonight's meeting is to go back and assume a 5% increase in the Anthem cost for next year. The last year increase was 0%. The year before that was 1%. Before that was 8%. Before that was 10. Timer's nodding at me, so I got it right. So 5% seems reasonable. We should hear from Anthem about what the high end of that increase could be by the end of this month. And we should hear in the first week of April about what the actual increase will be. But at this point, it feels like we could change our projection from what we have right now, which is 10, down to 5. We have also asked Mrs. Hersom to look at what opportunities there are to freeze some vacant positions this year, and not freeze all of them, and only the remainder of this year, but any positions that are administratively feasible, to look at that and identify what of that could be used to offset some of the increase that we'll be facing in the next budget. But that should get us much closer. It should bring us under a 1% increase. It will still be moving us towards where we would like to be, to a flat budget. still, it's important that people understand, even if we're able to maintain a flat budget, due to the decrease in state funding, there will still be an increase to local share. And again, I would just want to reiterate that we would be shifting ongoing costs, like ongoing positions, onto one-time federal resources, which obviously we would want those ongoing costs to continue because they're people that we find valuable to our school system, and we want them to be there, but we need to acknowledge that at this point we would be putting them on a one-time resource, and as we bring them back, that will impact our operating budget. And then for other budget-related news, the timeline, the referendum vote for the budget is scheduled for June 8th, which is when is there a primary this year? Well, that's the referendum. Normally we have a budget validation meeting in May. Last year we did not because of the limitation on gathering sizes. The executive order that exempts that section of Maine statute was revised in January, indicating that again, for this year's budget cycle, as long as we provide an opportunity for the public to comment on the budget, we do not have to hold a budget validation meeting. So we will propose to hold, during one of our May board meetings, a budget review meeting, similar to what we did last year, which was held by Zoom, so that the public could, did we have it? It was held electronically so that the public could hear us and could call in with comments or questions. We would do that again this year, as well as continue to provide the budget proposal through the mail, as we have done historically. But that way, we won't have to worry about the limitations on the gathering limits. So we will do that in May. In order to do that, we will need to sign the budget, sign the warrants for the budget by April 15th. So this all works back from the June 8th meeting. So ideally, we would approve the budget on April 1st, at which point we may or may not know what the final anthem numbers are. If we don't know what the final anthem numbers are, I would propose that we would hold a special meeting on the 8th so that we could make sure our budget appropriately captured what that significant change would be. What I do think is extremely important to reiterate again is the budget proposal maintains our current staffing. And the amount of work and finesse that it has taken for the administration, Mrs. Hersom and Tara, to be able to identify potential federal resources to support some of our staffing is quite an undertaking. So I just want to publicly acknowledge that we certainly appreciate the amount of work that that takes to manage those multiple resources and identify which ones can support positions within the district. I think that's all I have to know.
Thank you, Jenny. Nice job. I have an update for negotiations. We met with the administrators on the 2nd, and I will fill you in during the executive session. We meet with the employees on the 11th. The board was also the board's negotiation committee was also notified today by the Teachers Association that they would, due to educational staff and childcare being moved back to the 1B section in the COVID vaccination plan, they would like to discuss and meet and be part of planning for coming back, potentially having students come back full-time. So I just wanted to let everyone know. I think it's actually, it may not happen for this year, or it might, I don't know, but I think it's nice that the staff, because we employ over 400 employees in the district, want to be part of their health and safety and planning moment and talking. So I think it's good that we're working collaboratively still with them, and we'll continue to meet with them on that. Any other committees? All right, moving on, superintendent's report.
I just want to update on a few items. One being this junior high project is nearly concluded, finished, where people are living back in the spaces that were demolished earlier. Scott Washburn was able to, Scott Washburn, our custodial staff, were able to move the nurses to offices back to the rooms that were totally demolished with that repair of the sewer lines. Our electrician just showed up a couple days ago, was able to get back to us and do the finished pieces. So that's all intact. The ventilation that had existed has been reconnected, and we have some improved spaces with the nurse's office and the isolation room. The tile is down, the drywall is up and painted, and on my way through, I saw Toby Simpson and Steve Reynolds finishing up the first floor girls' bathroom, completing the stalls because the junior high students have been, because that was inaccessible, using the Williamson restroom. So this place is back to nearly restored. There are other projects that are still in progress, like window replacement that Scott had arranged in a cycle. We are still waiting to receive the quote from Siemens for the estimate to upgrade this ventilation system in this complex, the mechanical system, the high school, the junior high, and Benton. And as has been noted with our public forum events and part of CHA's study and report out, is that there are no mechanical systems in place existing in Clinton, Albion, and Fairfield Primary. So the window replacement, fans to circulate out, and we are going to order, as I mentioned in one of the forms, an air purifier for each of those spaces that are occupied by staff and students, certainly all the classrooms and then some, in each of those three schools until we get through this piece of it. And that's the best we can do right now, given that there are no systems to upgrade in those buildings. I spoke with Shane Savage this morning, had tried to reach him late yesterday when the notice came out from the governor and the Department of Ed regarding the vaccination eligibility, new rollout, updated rollout, and so Shane owns this Fairfield Pharmacy, and I think four others locally, but they are an independent pharmacy, and this is the person that we were partnering with to set up a clinic for all our staff while the 1B was still in play way back, and then shortly thereafter when I surveyed our staff, things changed a little bit. So I think we're right back to that space, except the vaccines are not available yet to independent pharmacies for this purpose. So he is hoping that he'll hear from the CDC this week, and maybe that will would change, but in the meantime, I emailed all of our employees earlier today and updated them on that, but suggested if you can receive the vaccine through any other avenue, I would encourage you to do so. But I'm hoping very shortly we'll run a clinic on a Saturday. That is our plan for that. And in regard to schools and their capacities, and working out of a hybrid right now due to the distancing required to transport and have students in-house, we have still a number of students in remote. It seems like the numbers are fairly stable, actually dropping for every school except the high school. There are still, let's see, we have 204 high school students in remote, which reduces the number of students in each of those cohorts, maybe not evenly necessarily. But one thing, and we talked about this a few weeks back at a policy and educational program planning committees, we were working with the high school principal in credits, lack thereof, probably due to students not fully participating in their programming, trying to come up with some solutions, extended school day, extended school year, summer school, some credit recovery options, but the principals have all been working very hard to encourage students to return to us on the alternating days. What we did not communicate, as some school districts did from the beginning, is that if a family opted for a red fully remote designation, that they were committed to that for the duration of the school being in the hybrid model that the district adopted. We have been doing the inverse of that and trying to encourage people to return. So at any given moment, the number of in-person students could change. So I just wanted that to be clear as the conversations are circulating around. I participated in a virtual meeting with the Kennebec Valley Superintendent's Group, was joined by the Deputy Commissioner today, talking about the framework and some elements of it and when potentially that will be updated. I don't think anyone sees in the foreseeable future, most immediately, that the distancing requirement will be lifted. But I don't know, and I don't want to speculate out. But until the Department of Education revises that plan, we are going to be where we're at right now. And that, are there any questions about anything that I've mentioned here in the project or the vaccination clinic or framework? Thank you.
Thank you again. Other business? Is there a motion to go into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA Section 4056A to discuss contract negotiations?
So moved. Second.
Is that Rachel?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. It's been moved by Katrina and seconded by Rachel to go into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA Section 4056A to discuss contract negotiations. Any discussions? All those in favor?